Ubuntu, in terms of the word and the phrase, is an African word that means I am because you are because we are. In terms of what the publication is, Ubuntu publication is a magazine that speaks to the corporate world with regards to incorporating a softer side into their core competencies. And what that means is that instead of just focusing on the bottom line and profit margins, a company has to understand that it no longer can exist on its own, that it has a responsibility to support and look after the communities in which they operate. What that means is that it includes community work, it includes being accountable for the environment that is perhaps affected and harmed, and being accountable. I wouldn't call Ubuntu an entirely corporate social responsibility publication. The biggest error people make when they hear about the magazine Ubuntu is that they immediately assume that it's a charity magazine. There is a bit of charity, there's a bit of corporate social responsibility. There's also information about being a good corporate citizen in terms of people, profit and planet. You need to, as a corporate, you need to take into all those things into consideration when you are planning your business for going forward. So it's a whole bunch more than people think it is. It's not just a corporate social responsibility magazine. The magazine does appeal essentially to the corporate South Africa, purely based on the fact that the corporate South Africa has a lot of power, and you may not be here in a few years' time or in 50 years' time, but your children will, and your children's children will. And in terms of that perspective, being conscious and aware of how you operate and who you tread on is a very vital component. And also, at the end of the day, it's good for business to actually have that kind of perspective because, for example, in the economic crisis that we experienced a couple of years ago, it has been stated, or it's actually been proven, that the companies that had CSR initiatives are the ones that actually had their doors open still. It's the companies that didn't that ended up closing. The government has a big role to play in leaning on the philosophy of Ubuntu. And it really is a philosophy that encompasses government and the private sector. Now, another arm of the publication that we look at is advocating the importance of partnerships, public and private partnerships. And within that, municipalities do have a role to play in service delivery, water, electricity, waste management. All these elements need to be made a core focus of theirs in terms of the areas that really need assistance. And perhaps, as government has said, they often can't do it on their own. They're always looking for partnerships. And that is another element of the magazine. We really do advocate strong partnerships with like-minded organizations, with the private and the public sector. In the magazine, we do try to create a synergist effect between government and the private sector. I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't think within my stewardship of this publication it's going to be exactly the way it should be. I think it's a learning process for both the private and the government, the private sector and government, just in terms of speaking. I think government and the private sector need to speak, and they need to understand that as a unit, becoming a unified body, that more can be done to build our nation, which is essentially what Ubuntu magazine is about. It's about nation building. When I took over Ubuntu publication, a lot of corporates were not interested. They didn't understand it. They didn't want to waste the time getting to understand it. A lot of them were hesitant in terms of the fact that why should I spend my time, my resources, and my employees and skills giving back when I'm not going to get anything back immediately. Businesses focus on the immediate, the short term. They're wanting results, they're wanting returns immediately. It's only recently, over the last year or so, that they're starting to understand that, yes, there are immediate returns. For example, if you do have a corporate social responsibility program within your company and you have your employees involved in that, the amount of team building that there is within just that one area is phenomenal. Not to mention that each company is made up of individuals, and those individuals perhaps didn't have much information about corporate social responsibility and what it is that they could do to make a difference to someone else's life. So there's that sense of, wow, I actually have a role to play in society. And not just that, it in terms of the outside, what it does is it allows the community members who really are struggling, that one day, for whatever reason, if a company decides that they want to assist an individual to study further, or to create a studio for students in the rural area who really would be on the streets getting up to no good, in gangs, participating in crimes, drug dealing, drug usage, those kind of things. If you've got a company who's involved in creating a platform in these townships where instead of being that person, they can be in a dance studio, learning to dance, learning to act, being educated. The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, you may not get the results that you want from that person immediately or from those people immediately, but in the long term, you get the benefits of that, because they're going to remember you as a brand. I believe in the magazine Ubuntu, definitely. I'm the first person to say it's not a charity magazine. It is so much more than you think it is. And I would sit down with anybody and explain to them why it's important for you as a person in South Africa, as a citizen, to give more of your time, more of your skills, and more of your understanding to another individual, because to do that will really raise South Africa in the position we want it to be. I love Ubuntu magazine. I do.